panel. Damon, Kate, and Tim, I see you're all here, and I'm going to introduce you. We're very, very appreciative that you are taking the time today, because I know you're incredibly busy getting the economy open. And I'd like to introduce you, and then we'll get right into questions. Damon Connolly. Damon has been a Marin County Supervisor since 2015 and was previously a San Rafael Vice Mayor and 7-year member of the City Council. He has lived in San Rafael for the past 22 years with his wife, Dawn, and their 2 daughters, and holds a BA and law degree from UC Berkeley. So welcome, Supervisor Connolly, to the panel. Our next panelist is San Rafael Vice Mayor Kate Colin. She has served on the San Rafael City Council since January of 2013 and was a San Rafael Planning Commissioner for nearly 8 years. She has lived in the Sun Valley neighborhood since 1996 and with her husband Jeff and 2 children. Kate is a lifelong athlete and has an MBA from Kellogg, as well as a BA from Dartmouth. Welcome, Vice Mayor Kate Colin.
Thank you.
And our third panelist, we're very grateful to Tim McGallian for bringing diversity from the Bay Area, from Contra Costa County, where our office is headquartered. Mayor Tim McGallian has served on the Concord City Council since 2017. He currently serves on the Transportation, Infrastructure Services, Federal Advisory Committee for the National League of Cities, and on the Transportation, Communications, and Public Works Committee for the California League of Cities. Forgive me. Mayor Tim is a business lines consultant for State Farm Insurance for the Greater Bay Area. He holds a Bachelor of Arts in Strategic Management and Marketing from Sacramento State University. He and his wife, Michelle, have 3 children, Andrew, Alyssa, and Audrey. Welcome. If we can, the purpose of the panel is education, is really to help the business owners on the meeting here to understand as best as you can, as our leaders and also as business people yourselves, what is it that we can plan on? And time really matters. So let's jump right into it, if we may. I know that Damon and Kate, you've been doing real yeoman's work on Marin Recovers. So I'd like to ask this question. Tell us what Marin Recovers is. And then I'd like, if Mayor Tim, you could listen and maybe mention, particularly for your constituents that are joining us vis-a-vis the Concord Chamber of Commerce, do you have anything similar in Concord? So Damon, please lead us off. What is Marin Recovers?
Thank you, Paul, and thank you very much for the invite. It's great to be here with everyone tonight, including my colleagues. So Marin Recovers is our comprehensive effort to bring the private sector and public sector together to really hash out guidelines on how to get businesses reopened and how to move Marin toward recovery. A lot of us have been working literally more than full time on getting relief to small businesses, making sure that our communities are safe. Really the impetus right now is next step, and that is reopen and recovery. So we literally have brought together 16 industry groups together with our public health officials, our cities and towns, our chambers. I'm fortunate enough to sit on the Economic Recovery Subcommittee of the larger Marin Recovers effort. And it's driven by 3 phases, and these are things we're all too familiar with, right? Phase 1, which we're now through, was making sure that we got enough testing capacity online. Marin's objective has been to get about 500 tests per day. We actually, as of today, achieved that. So going forward, we anticipate we've got the testing capacity. We need to track and trace positive cases, right? To make sure that there's not additional community spread to the extent possible. Hospital capacity, intensive care capacity, we feel we're there with those indicators right now. So a very data-driven approach. we've entered phase 2. And in a nutshell, that really is a phased, systemic reopening of our local economy and society in a broader sense. So you're well familiar with kind of the initial phase of that, where all construction came back online with safeguards in place. We had gardening, landscaping, kind of outdoor economic activity. More recently, as of this week, with an updated public health order, we now have curbside retail, manufacturing, and warehousing. And then we'll quickly follow that a next phase. And the premise of this is, as public officials, as our public health officer, Dr. Willis, a very smart guy, does not know how to run your business, right? So the idea is you do. So it's getting that hands-on input to make sure that the guidelines make sense for businesses with that safety sheen to the guidelines, which is important. And that's how we want to go forward. So phase 3, ultimately a little bit down the road, as we continue to, and you know, things are changing by the day, by the week. We're likely to see within even the next couple weeks more opening, indoor restaurant capacity, offices, other sectors are also wrapping up their work. We're a ways away though, and we know it from what would kind of be a phase 3, right? Where you're going to have larger events, you know, whether they're sports activities or concerts and the like. You know, a couple other variables now are, when will schools be reopened? So there's still a lot of things changing very quickly, but at least the goal is to self-empower businesses, work with our public health officials, and do this in a systemic, safe way.
Damon, how does, and Kate, if you don't mind also, how does one participate in the process, make our voices heard? Are there meetings? Who do we talk to, etc.?
Yeah,
I mean, real quick, if we can do it rapid fire.
Yep, there are. So go to marinrecovers.com, indicate your desire to participate. You'll see it laid out, the various industry groups, who's on them, how to contact them, and at a minimum, provide your input. We're receiving hundreds of comments, and they're all helpful.
Mayor Tim, do you have anything like that in Concord? You're muted. Let me unmute you. And then I'll come back to you, Kate.
Got it. There we go. We got unmuted finally. We're good?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for having me, and greetings, everyone. So we don't have an official program, like was mentioned, over in Marin County. I would say our biggest outreach efforts, realistically, though, has been our collaborative efforts with the Concord Chamber of Commerce. Our Visit Concord, that organization, along with our economic development staff, we pretty much meet on a regular basis. We pretty much see each other at least 1 to 2 times a week, and start going through all the different elements that it kind of takes to get to reopen. And so even just tomorrow, we're having an opportunity to get together with all of our auto dealerships and being able to sit down with them. Let's line out exactly how we're going to get to open, and consistently having those ongoing meetings with our health officer, Dr. Farnatano, and trying to make sure that we're connecting the dots. So as the health orders are getting written, of course, the tough part is, and I'm sure that Supervisor Connolly says the same thing, they're not always clear. They're not everybody understands in the language on what they're meant to be or what they're meant to say. And so that part tends to you're having to kind of dissect it a little bit. And so that's the piece that we're trying to be really, really clear about. Now, of course, we're holding town halls every single week, again, with that same collaborative group, bringing people on, letting people know about, hey, by the way, you know, this last week we had on the different hospital systems, John Muir Health, Kaiser Permanente, the different specialty groups as well. Hey, by the way, healthcare's open. Don't just think putting off care is still something you should be doing right now. So trying to make sure just people are aware, because honestly, we all understand people are scared. And I mean, I really have to give a shout out to the person earlier about the marketing component. A lot of this has to do with being able to just help change people's kind of behaviors again, try to figure out that things are open again. What does that mean? How am I going to interact with it? And being able to kind of get people out there a little bit. Yeah, maybe they can't walk into a restaurant or sit down at a bar, but they definitely can still go out and get food from a restaurant. They shouldn't be scared of that. But it's working hard to try to get people and working with small business owners. And that's the piece that I would say I got to give kudos to even my colleagues. I know that Kevin Cabral's on the phone from the Concord Chamber, but we're talking to business owners all the time about how are you pivoting? How are you taking advantage of what's out there right now? And really taking your business, changing it and focusing it, because people will listen and they'll pick up your message if you're putting it out there correctly, or if you're changing your menu in a way that makes it simple to understand, easy to be able to just go online. Hey, family meal number 1 sounds fantastic. Great, boom, and I'm picking it up, and everybody's on their way. So those are the different things that we're doing out here, is really working hard on business education, trying to get out there, let people know what's going on, let people know that things are either open or we're moving to open. These are the steps that it takes, and trying to help people or make sure they're connecting the dots.
Vice Mayor Colin, thank you.
Yeah.
How can we go faster?
Well, yeah,
Pick up on the discussion.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. And one thing I want to add is that information is a commodity that we're dealing with right now, right? It's the new orders that are coming down, the new mandates, and it's information both at the state level as well as locally. And so really, I think a big role for the elected officials is how do we work with that commodity? How do we work with the business community, so when the mandates are changed or the orders are changed, they get accurate information. Supervisor Connolly is right. Marin County's trying to filter a lot of that through their website. In Marin County, we have 10 separate cities and towns. I chair a group that is all comprised of elected officials, one from each of those cities and towns. Because the reality is, we don't want to bottleneck that information flow. We want to make it as fluid as possible. So I want business owners, I want them calling me. I want them calling their elected officials in their towns and communities. Yes, they can go on the website, but the more that we can have that collective voice. So I would add the information and the collaboration. I mean, this is unwritten, unprecedented. We've heard that word over and over. So really the way we get through it is collaborating and constant communication.
And that's a great segue to the next question, which is, who is making the decision? So to the decisions here. So to Mayor Tim's point, the public health orders are sometimes hard to understand. Yet they all have an uncanny, almost down to the phraseology. They look identical, like they were written by the same group of people. Who is calling the shots, and why do all these orders look alike? And are you guys huddling together? Like Mayor Tim, have you ever spoken to Vice Mayor Kate before? I mean, just as an acid test here, please tell us how these decisions are being made across the Bay Area.
We haven't necessarily reached out maybe across the Bay, but I can tell you that it's pretty, I am in contact with some of my other mayors, whether it be Marin over in Pleasant Hill or Little Haskew over in Walnut Creek. We actually do talk quite often about things that are going on. That's just kind of our own working relationship. I would imagine that the vice mayor as well probably has many of the same things going on along the smaller collective groups out there.
But who's in charge in the Bay Area? I guess that's what I'm asking.
You want me to take a stab at that?
Yeah, please. You want to have fun with that, Supervisor?
Damon. Yeah.
It's not your imagination. They are being written by the same people. And I think to the credit of the Bay Area health officers on the 6 counties, including all those on the call today, did actually come together very early on in the pandemic and issued a series of groundbreaking public health orders. The first in the nation, really, was right here in the Bay Area. So they worked together. The state followed shortly thereafter. A lot of this takes us all the way back to kind of civics, what we learned in high school. It's been kind of interesting talking to some high school students about this. And the different levels of government. As was mentioned, ultimately the governor sets standards that are the floor. So counties cannot be any less restrictive than the governor, but they can be more restrictive. To date, the 6 Bay Area counties have been in lockstep for a variety of reasons, and it's actually worked. That's probably changing because I just think different indicators, different circumstances exist in each area, and that's happening around the state. Within county government, because we are actually in a public health emergency, state law mandates that it's our public health officer that makes the decision. We as elected officials can advise, and obviously we have a very important voice, but ultimately it's his or her call. The way we want to maximize our voice, and Kate spoke to this as well as Tim, is coming together as elected officials. So in Marin, we literally have this subcommittee. Kate's on it as well, and one of my colleagues and one of her colleagues, where we meet with every chamber in the whole county and actually make sure they have the information and that we're brainstorming as well to then take that feedback to the Marin Recovers effort, meaning public health and industry advisor groups. Simultaneously, we're reaching out to the governor's office and making sure that they're aware of what we feel needs to be tweaked or considered in their orders as well. So it's kind of multi-dimensional chess right now, let alone throwing in the federal government, right? That's out there as well. So an important part in many ways too. So.
Angela, do we have some questions? I have another one I can throw up, but I really want to open it up as quickly as possible. Let me ask this one as Angela's preparing for all three of you. Can there be a pathway to tax relief? For example, Damon, can we get a property tax holiday here? Can we get a sales tax holiday? Mayor Tim and Vice Mayor Kate Colin, can we have sales tax holidays and can we have property tax holidays? Is that realistic for your roadmaps?
Definitely should be part of the consideration. In fact, we were pushing for a state law change that would have allowed us flexibility on relieving folks of property tax payments in Marin. Where we landed was under current law, at least we were able to evaluate on a case-by-case basis relief from penalties and fines. And then you may recall thereafter, Governor Newsom did weigh in and actually granted a blanket relief package on that. So yeah, going forward, it would require some state law change, but certainly worth considering. I think everyone gets the pressure that people and businesses are under right now. So we need to be thinking creatively and comprehensively.
And I guess from our standpoint, we'd be more than happy to see some of the different tax relief efforts go through, as long as the HEROES Act passes. So, you know, I mean, it kind of all depends on the funding mechanisms that are available. And see, that's the tough part. It's kind of one of those, everybody has to understand, though, that there is this element of there has to be a revenue stream in order to keep vital elements of government open. So while we're more than happy to give tax relief, we still need to make sure that public employees, especially our police and firefighters and those essential people that keep, you know, all of your infrastructure open. And so that's the part that sometimes gets difficult to have those conversations with people around, because they're kind of like, well, hey, you know, I'm struggling on one side. Well, yeah, but, you know, do you want that toilet to flush when you flush your toilet every day? Hey, and I know it sounds funny and weird to say it that way, but it's sometimes that extremely simple. And so those are the pieces that there does need to be a bigger conversation at the state level and the federal government to be able to make sure that the proper revenues are being replaced at every level of government. And unfortunately, even some monies that kind of flowed through, even through the CARES Act, well, it never really made its way down to the cities. And so we've not been made whole as we're trying to go through this process, while other cities and you know, the different states around the country are having those conversations or doing some kind of cost sharing. we're not doing that in California. So we really are in a difficult spot being able to kind of figure that piece out. And sometimes there's not enough conversation around trying to make sure that cities and counties are still being able to provide those essential services.
And I'll just add to that, in terms of sales tax relief, it really depends on how cities are funded. In San Rafael, ours are TOT, so hotel taxes and sales tax is a majority, or the huge contributor to our budget. At our council meeting last night, we were presenting to the public our budget's already taking a 15% hit. As Mayor McGallian just said, that money is not being backfilled by the state at this point. So I really want the value added to me. And I'm sorry I missed the earlier conversation about marketing. That is my background. I think it is, what do the cities and towns, what do we do to start drive demand again so people are back in stores, back in restaurants, and how do we partner around that? And what's the platform that cities can bring to that? And the muscle, and that's where the conversation, we're having it here, and we're going to keep having it.
Yeah. And Angela, do we have some questions?
I think we have a really interesting one, considering that we have both mayors and presidents of chambers of commerce here. And so the question to the mayor's panel is, do you find yourself having much more open communication and a stronger relationship with the chambers right now?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yes.
You know, and I'll give props to Supervisor Connolly. I mean, the group that he was talking about is comprised of myself and a colleague representing the cities and towns, but all the chambers in Marin County, as well as a local economic forum, as well as a small business development. We'd never had that before. And it's something I think's been missing from the conversation. I think economically in Marin, we've been pretty fortunate. We've been able to have a success there, but we could be more deliberate. And it's terrible that it's taken a pandemic to have it become more deliberate. But these foundations,
yeah, in fact, Kate and I worked directly with our local chamber to establish a relief fund for small businesses that ended up raising about $300,000, and we could not have done that without the chamber. Yeah.
Yeah, and even from my side, when this first broke out, everything started happening. I literally had stand up calls almost every single morning for the first 2 weeks with my team, with the chamber, with Visit Concord, my economic development group, almost every single morning until now we still meet 1 to 2 times a week. But I mean, to all of their credit, if it wasn't for the chamber, there's a lot of resources we wouldn't have been able to stand up so quickly. And there were a number of food programs. Again, why? Because of the chamber and the relationships we had through the chamber is why we were able to outreach to so many different agencies and be able to make things happen almost immediately overnight. So huge credit, and it really speaks to the volume of how important, people don't realize how important that chamber relationship is.
I'd like to ask one question to all three. As a father of 2 little children that are going, that are challenged to be confined, what are we doing for the children to get them out and active as quickly as possible? And I think lots of parents are here. We are not opening up tennis. We're not opening up. I think it needs to be said that it's taking a toll on the health and mental health of young children. And I'm probably not alone speaking at this. So I guess the question is, not to be schmaltzy here, but if you can speak to the children that all have parents on the call here, what would you be telling them when they can start playing baseball and softball and tennis again? How soon is that?
Well, I would say I'll start with as a father of 3 and someone who enjoys kindergarten every morning. I'm knee deep in it, and I've got a high schooler, I've got an 8th grader, and a kindergartner. And so, we are trying to manage school as well as all of us trying to manage our professional lives. Oh, by the way, and do this elected thing too. And so, I mean, I know there's so many people that are just stretched as far as they can right now. The one side of this, there's that kind of silver lining that kind of says, hey, hopefully during this time frame, while most of the time we would be running to Little League games and running to swim meets and like seeing how many places we can be at once, In some cases, we're all here together under one roof. And so, hey, break out those games on occasion. It's okay. Like the other night, you know, we had a rousing game of Hungry Hungry Hippo and played headbands. Okay. And I know that's not like the perfect solution, but sometimes it is. And sometimes that's as simple as it can be. And it's okay to, you know, if you can take the bike ride, you can take the walks. We'll get there. And that's the piece. I think it's just the tough part about working from home. And as someone who works from home already, all it does is it just makes your day forever. You almost don't have a start and a stop. And so just trying to be really mindful of what that start and stop is. And then what kind of time you program for the whole family. Hopefully you're having an opportunity to sit around the table with them. Hopefully you're having an opportunity to do a little bit more and see what that turns into. It may not always be, can I get out and play tennis? Because that's the traditional sense. We get that part. But what's going on in the backyard? What's going on at the park? You know, you can still walk to the park. You can still throw a ball around. It's just, hey, you know, we're having to kind of think differently about, and in some cases, maybe we're giving a benefit to do things we haven't been able to do because we're so darn overscheduled. So it could be a silver lining to a lot of this.
So it's a litmus test. And then Angela, please ask another question from the group. When is the Damon, when is the YMCA going to open for business again? Do you imagine it's a good proxy for so much else?
Yeah, no, and I was just going to note, Paul, you can play tennis now.
You can.
We can't have a coach. Our tennis coach said he cannot play. We can play.
Do doubles, you can do singles, you can play golf, you can go outside with your kids, but you can't go to a state beach. So there's still some nuances, but gyms we're really getting a lot of questions on right now. And it's a great one. I'm hoping that, and this is speculation on my part, but fairly informed, sometime in June, I would like to see gyms open.
That's a good answer. Thank you. Angela, what do we have? Let me ask just as a program note, we are kind of going over a bit. I will ask a consensus. This is really a rare opportunity, and I know your schedules are busy, but do we need to wrap it up? Damon?
I was actually going to leave everyone with an interesting data point that just came to my attention, and it follows up on Tim's point. It's kind of, we all know the challenges, right? But I think people are kind of finding silver linings along the way right now. So get this, MTC recently did a poll in connection with something, and they asked the question of, is the Bay Area headed in the right direction or the wrong direction? Okay, and these polls have happened over time. So in January 2020, before this, 48% right direction, 36% wrong direction. In May 2020, 59% right direction, 33% wrong direction. What that tells me is that the Bay Area is fully invested in the path we've taken, namely the supremacy of public health and that goal, systematically working through this. It's been at the expense of having our kids out of school and different ways of learning and doing business, and worry about unemployment and how we're going to get through this. But the fact of the matter is there's optimism out there, not only about, in my view, how it's been handled so far, but where we are going with this. I think a lot of good can ultimately come out of this as well.
Thank you. That sounds good. Do we want to ask another question or wrap up? We are over, but it's an incredibly rare opportunity, and I want to give all the elected officials an opportunity to give a parting word. Angela, what's our time like, and what is the patience of the group here?
I think we have time for very brief closing statements, and then I'll do a wrap up. And if people have to leave, don't be shy about having to leave. But there will be some open networking after we do the final wrap up.
And we do have announcements coming up next as well that we want to.
And in fact, we can count that as my closing. So we'll just hear from Kate and Tim.
Thank you, Supervisor Connolly. We're grateful for you having been here. Thank you. Mayor Kate.
Yeah, no,
Vice Mayor Kate.
No, so thank you. I want to reiterate that our local businesses are the backbone of our economy, and that everyone recognizes that. And as business people, your success absolutely impacts our success as a community and as a city. And to Paul's point, you have other stuff going on. Your parents, you're being pulled in many, many different directions. And having this type of opportunity where all of you are together and you're networking in rooms, I think is really important. So you're learning from each other of what's working, and how to, pivot your business if that is there. And let's end on the high note, the silver lining part. The silver lining to me is, wow, there are all these people that I get to have a face-to-face with now that know they can reach out to me if they live in Marin, they can reach out to Damon or to Mayor Tim, that we can start having these conversations and collaborations. None of us had to actually put on real shoes or get in the car to have this conversation. And so let's take that forward. Right. So this isn't just, yes, we're going to get through the coming months, but let's really use these connections and these tools we have to actually build our business muscles. So that's the silver lining that I'm taking away, to reach and connect with people who otherwise I wouldn't have been able to.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor Tim, any closing thoughts?
No, you know what? Actually, Vice Mayor, that was perfect. Thank you for kind of mentioning a lot of those different things. And just to continue to say, hey, don't forget to reach out to your local elected. We actually do want to hear from you. We want to collaborate with you. And it is a passion of ours to make sure that things are running right. And you're part of that engine. We want to make sure that economic engine is running and it's strong. And chances are, if we have resources that we can connect with you, we're going to do that. And so that's the piece to just kind of remember, hey, use your chambers of commerce, use your resources that are out there. And it's nice to see, honestly, even the marketing segment that was on earlier, how to rebrand yourself, how to think, the pivot, like Kate said earlier, that was perfect. Those pieces are so vitally important. So hopefully everybody's taking advantage of those opportunities. And hopefully this has definitely been an opportunity to get people to think differently about the way we're going to move forward in the future. And I think the way we do business is now going to change. I mean, I think the amount of people prior to this was freaked about ever doing a video call. Now it's it's normal, it's standard now. Everybody's probably a little Zoom fatigued at a certain point, but being able to do a video call now could be another way to reach out to your customers like you've never reached out before, and a way to actually have a more personal interaction without maybe, needing to drive away. Maybe you can actually now reach out to people farther outside of just your general geographic location. I know it sounds funny to say that, but you can maybe now take care of a larger service area. So just different ways of kind of now pushing yourselves to a whole nother limit. And again, thank you for having me. Really appreciate the conversation today.
Thank you. Well, I think, Angela, you're going to